Call to order the October 5th meeting of the Board of Education. If you all may please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Ning. Present. Trustee Farron. Trustee Jaros.
Here.
Trustee McDowell. Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee White.
Present.
Trustee McOwen.
Present.
Trustee Saunders. Trustee Zamore.
Present.
Quorum is present, sir. Need a motion to enter executive session this evening for the purposes of discussing matters relating to the appointment of a person or persons, the employment history of a person or persons, special education matters, and collective bargaining negotiations with the district unions.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Jaros, Trustee Zamore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
How long do we expect to be?
45 minutes to an hour.
45 minutes to an hour. Coffee break. Thank you. All right.
Need a motion to reconvene to public session.
Motion.
Trustee White and Trustee Jaros, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Mr. Zamore is not present for the vote.
Right now, we'll take communications from the public.
Good evening. There's no legal requirement to recognize public comment at meetings of the Board of Education. However, the Board recognizes the critical importance of community discourse and involvement in the education of Mount Vernon's children, and accordingly, members of the public are invited to speak at each regularly scheduled Board meeting, subject to the terms of the Board policy. A speaker must register in advance by no later than 4 p.m. the date of the meeting by contacting the district clerk in person at 165 North Columbus Avenue, Mount Vernon, by phone at 914-665-5235, or via email at rmccormack@mtvernoncsd.org. The Board welcomes all respectful comment, whether praise or criticism. However, identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, administrator, or other Mount Vernon education official or employee is strictly prohibited. Any such complaint must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to 1 additional minute for the speaker to summarize and conclude their remarks. If appropriate, the Board trustees and/or the superintendent or other staff members at the direction of the superintendent may immediately respond to the speaker's remarks. Our first speaker this evening is Delia Farquharson.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, community members. If the board would allow, Mrs. Wynn was unable to be here, and she signed up to speak. She sent a statement, a short statement, that I'd like to read, if it's okay with the board, before I speak. Is it okay with the board?
Yes.
Thank you. So good evening, Dr. Hamilton, board members, and the Mount Vernon community. I'm writing to let it be known that MBK will be seeking BOCES services that are provided for the community outside of the school district. At this point, we would like to know how the services are used and to what extent in the district. We want to be careful of any duplication of services. On another note, I want to say congratulations on the hiring of your new administrators to lead our schools. I'm truly impressed and look forward to great things. I drive by Graham School every opportunity that I can. What a beautiful construction site. Very encouraging. Exclamation, exclamation. May all efforts be blessed. Francis Wynn. My name again is Delia Farquharson, and I came this evening to ask the board, as I did some members and the superintendent, to consider seriously the Red Ribbon Week initiative, which is a drug awareness program aimed particularly at middle schools. And so I wanted to also take the opportunity to channel, just for a minute, Mrs. Jeanette Petaway. And some of you may remember Mrs. Jeanette Petaway, but Mrs. Petaway was a stalwart in our community, and she would come dressed to the nine at the school board meetings in matching hats, sometimes gloves, and she would talk about the fact that parents were not parenting their children and the children were not being dressed properly in the community, and any other number of things. So I wanted to take an opportunity to just channel Mrs. Petaway and to ask the school board to really consider for this year participating in Red Ribbon Week, which is about raising awareness about drug use in the community, and in particular in our middle schools. Last evening, I had a conversation with someone who was very familiar with the A.B. Davis School and talked about how so often when you see those who are getting arrested for community violence or those who have been victims of community violence, you can often reflect and remember seeing that child in middle school or remembering that child at a younger phase. And so I think it's really important that every opportunity that we get, we use it to try to develop awareness about drug use and drug prevention. And so this campaign, which is an incentivized campaign, it's a fun campaign, it's a national campaign. And the logo this year was created by 6th graders out of the communities called Clayburgh, Pennsylvania. But it was created in Clayburgh, Pennsylvania, YOLO, you only live once, to live drug-free. And so I'm thinking that even if we reach one child with this message, because I know we probably on a daily basis reinforce that message of drug use in the community, I think it's really important to use any opportunity that's going to grab the attention of the children. And I think the Red Ribbon Campaign is one such opportunity, one such initiative that might grab the attention of the children. It's an incentivized program. It's competitive in a way that might, garner attention. We cannot be complacent. A sense of urgency must be generated. And I think, we hear about the shooting in the community. We know that the evidence says that there is a connection between drug use, alcohol and substance use, and community violence. And so the young men that are dying were but a few short years ago middle schoolers themselves. There's one book that was done, and I have not met the author, but I came to know about him recently. His name is Gerald Hoover. He's a product of Mount Vernon. He went to the schools here in Mount Vernon, and he's written a book. He wrote a book, I think, maybe 20 years ago or so, that's called My Friend, My Hero. And the book documents the story of his journey. His father was a substance use person, died of substance use. And so Gerald, as an adult, wrote this story to try to promote this message of drug prevention. So I'm asking that consideration be given, that this book, this initiative, be considered in our middle schools for this year. Red Ribbon Week is October 23rd through the 31st, so that if only one child is reached, then it would be 100% for this child. And so, to ask that we just put serious consideration into doing this effort, because sometimes denial looks like delay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Our next speaker is Nadia Mondesier. Did I say that right?
Good evening, members of the board, members of the district, and community members. An incident happened with my son the first day of school, and I took some time before coming to talk to you about it because I wanted to kind of cool my head and come up with a proposition for the issue. On the first day of full-day kindergarten, my son was put in line for the bus, and he never takes the bus. The teacher's assistant asked him, he's 5 years old, do you get on the bus? He says, yes, he loves the bus. He always laments, why can't I go on the bus? He walks to school, he never gets on the bus. He was put in line for the bus. My mother-in-law, who only speaks French, comes to pick him up. They can't find my son. The teacher is frantic. Where is Aiden? She runs to find the teacher's assistant. My son is in line for the bus. I got a call from the teacher at 4:25 to apologize. I lost it. I couldn't believe that could happen. Why would you ask a 5-year-old if he takes the bus? That's not for him to know. There should be some kind of documentation. There has to be procedure. The next day, early in the morning, I had a talk with the principal and the teacher. The principal assured me this would not happen again. They have a list, but I don't have confidence in what she said. Sure, now that my son is marked, he won't get on the bus, but what about another kid? What about in the other schools? Who's paying attention to this? I was totally baffled that could happen to my son. The thoughts that went through my head, he could have gotten on the bus, riding through Mount Vernon. I just lost it. So my proposition is, I've given you a few handouts. I found a template of, it's a student photo ID bus pass. There are communities, there are districts who have these, where you have your child's picture, his pickup spot in the morning, where he gets dropped off in the afternoon, the name of the school. My coworker, she actually has this in her district. She lives in Carmel. The kids have it on their backpacks. They show it. They get off on the right spot. They make sure that someone takes them further from where they're dropped off, and they go home. I don't want another parent to go through just the thought of thinking that your child could have gotten on a bus that he's not supposed to be on. I don't want another parent to get a call like that. So I'm here talking to you with a proposition of what are your thoughts on that? Who's in charge of the policies for kids' transportation? What is the checklist that we have?
Thank you. Thank you, and I'm sorry that you had that experience. This is actually I'm hearing of this. I did not know that occurred. We will certainly look into what provisions are in place. As you probably know, we don't have a lot of students who get bused, so putting a protocol in place to safeguard youngsters from having that same experience would be relatively simple to do.
There's actually quite a few buses at my son's school. I see them in the mornings. A lot of kids get on the bus.
In terms of the number of students that are in our district, we have few that get bused, relatively few. But I will certainly bring this issue to our principals. Mr. Davis is here, and he's been spearheading some of the IDs that we do provide for our students, and we're actually in the process of upgrading some of them. So this may be something that we can look at as well. But I'll find out more about how that happened, why it happened, so we can put a procedure in place to make sure that children are safeguarded, particularly our younger children. All right, thank you for bringing that to my attention. All right. Mr. Davis, do you have a copy of this? Would you?
Our last speaker is Thomas Keller. That concludes.
Okay, regarding Mrs. Mondesir's dilemma with what happened with her son, it's something that we will cover, that I intend to speak more in depth about, which is security in the schools. That bus incident can be one of the measures added to prevent children from going missing or going about the city in a bus that they're not supposed to be on. I've made the observation, and I'm currently going to have further discussions with the business superintendent about a security consultant that we're looking to hire or put out an RFP for. I'm not sure which one, but Ken, you could speak further on that regarding what other measures we can take in our schools for a lot of exit doors that are not monitored currently by the security guards. And I know there's been many instances where especially students with disabilities have left school buildings and have left the building. And so, very concerned about that. I would like to see what we can do, maybe some type of warning system when any door is opened in any of the schools in the district, that security be alerted, that there be cameras at every exit location, entrance and exit location throughout all the school buildings. It's a large undertaking, but with wireless capabilities right now, as far as technology is concerned, just like in your home, when a door opens, you don't have to have it wired so that the alarm knows that that door has, that contact's been broken and that door is open. I believe we need something like that, and we will get more into it. Mr. Silver, can you add to that? I know there's a lot of other, a lot of areas of security that we need to cover, but those are one tonight that Mrs. Mondesir brought to our attention, and of course the other one which I continue to witness throughout the district.
Once our security consultant is in place, that person will be dealing with bus security, building security, vulnerability assessment to attack, safety having to do with the bond and various construction projects. We do have an initiative that is about to start, which is to put alarms on all the doors in all the elementary schools that are guarded or unguarded. Those doors that are not meant to be open during the day will have an alarm, so that if a child leaves for whatever reason, we will know it. We had not thought about doors in the other buildings, but that would be part of the report and the progress that we would make through the consultants when we get that person on board, which we do hope to have very soon.
Fantastic, thank you. So, public, we are on it. Thank you for that. I'm glad we're ahead of the curve on that. Superintendent?
No report from the superintendent tonight.
All right. I was expecting to buy some time here. All right. I have some notes here.
We had a very lengthy confidential this past weekend, so I purged this past weekend.
Yes, you did. I noticed. Spent my entire Sunday on that confidential. Okay. All right. Speaking of the achievements that we've been making in the district at all levels, we cited last time, I believe there was a presentation. Is it going to be a presentation tonight?
No, sir.
No, okay. We had a presentation in terms of test score improvements.
That's next meeting.
That's next meeting?
Yes.
Should I hold off?
Yes.
Dr. Walden is redoing her presentation. If you remember, I sent you another copy so you would have it in advance of the
Yes.
meeting.
Yes, yes.
And Dr. Walden will redo that. There were several board members that were absent at that meeting, so we're doing another public presentation on the data.
Okay, fantastic. So that said, I think it's actually what I'm about to say, it's appropriate in terms of timing. That the graphs represent a number of 0 to 100. They're a little misleading at the onset. You know, if you look very carefully, you start reading the numbers, they start to make a little bit more sense. However, also some of the numbers represented at the bottom for that particular graph area is lower than the graph bar line that it represents. For example, if at the bottom the data shows 20%, just throwing a number out there, but the graph bar is under the 20% line. So that number might really actually reflect 17.5%. But it's very obvious that it does not represent 20%, right? So therefore, either the bar graph reflects the number that it states at the bottom where the data is, or you just don't have maybe the number on the bottom. But it has to carry forward. The other thing is that if your, let's say, top number is, throwing a number out there, if your top number is 60 and your achievement is, let's say, 56, then your graph should not end at 60, because the perception is that that top line of the graph is 100. And so it seems as if wow, look at, how much we've achieved, but actually it's, wait a minute, this is kind of skewed because that's not out of 100, it's out of 60. So if you can have the graph reflect that, I think it'll be a little bit more accurate in the perception at least before you actually get into the numbers. And that said, I want to say that we are making progress, and that's what it's all about. So that I don't think we need to, and I'm not saying it was done intentionally, but I don't think we need to appear as if we're doing better than we actually are, because what we're looking at is progress. What the state looks at is progress. What the community looks for is progress. As long as we're heading in the right direction, we're all doing our jobs and we're all doing well. And that's what it's all about. So if you could please note that, I'd appreciate it. Where we currently have teacher vacancies, I believe we have quite a few. Is Denise here?
No, her mother's
Mother passed away.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. Did Donna send out that message or no?
No,
Okay.
she doesn't want it.
Oh, okay, no problem. Because I do read them. So,
Dr. Campbell, would you have that data by any chance?
well, it's not that necessary. So, basically, the point is that I'd like to make is that we have currently quite a few vacancies. I don't want to put out a number, but it's quite a few. What are the kids with those vacant teaching spots, what are they doing now? Do they have substitutes? Do they have TAs? Like, what exactly is happening in those classrooms?
Please.
In those particular classrooms, we have substitutes. We do have some retired teachers who are here working and giving back service. The principals are working diligently to fill those positions, so we do have subs. I think we have about 100 and approximately 75 substitutes who are processed and who are working in our district. So there are substitutes covering, but we've been filling vacancies pretty rapidly.
Okay, and do we have is there anything in terms of I don't want to say deadline, but in terms of maybe, let me try to gather what I'm trying to say here. So let's say there are different exams that the kids have to pass. I know sometimes there's like Regents exams or different other maybe state exams. And is it absolutely necessary that they have a permanent teacher, or can the substitute achieve that with the students and get them to that point where they can take these exams and be proficient at them?
Also, it depends on which situation, right? Because in some instances, we may have a retired teacher. A lot of the schools will be starting their Title I programs and their services to provide tutoring for students who need academic support. But it depends on the classes. But in all actuality, they would have additional support from the existing staff that's there.
Okay, so can you assure me that that none of the classrooms have a substitute teacher that's not proficient in the subject that they are attending?
I can't 100% assure you. However, I do know that the principals try to match the area of expertise with the students for the classes that these substitutes are selected for.
Okay, so what I'd like for you guys to do perhaps is to double check that and maybe report back to the superintendent, who could report back to us in terms of if there are any classrooms where the substitute teacher is not proficient in the subject at which they're substituting, in order to get the students to that level at which they can take their exams. There was a similar situation last year regarding the Spanish teacher, and we just don't want to be caught off guard again. The last thing I want is a parent coming up to us stating that fact. So at least we'd be ready, and maybe those could be high priority positions to fill. All right,
So
thank
that's
you.
by the next meeting?
I'm sorry?
That's by the next meeting?
By the next meeting, which is 2 weeks, I
Yeah,
believe
that's
that's
good.
plenty of time.
Yep.
So one of the positions we've had a hard time really finding, and we've been working on filling that, would be the media specialist. So we are working and reaching out to different colleges as well to ensure that we have folks who are also certified to fill those vacancies.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay. Next is, just want everyone to be aware that the superintendent, I know for sure, and myself, and I'm not sure who else from the district will be attending a summit, a land use summit tomorrow at the Wartburg that the city has put on. Now, I know we called for our own summit on this board to invite the city leaders to discuss specifically the tax pilots. So I know Donna has been, the superintendent's assistant has been putting together possible dates to go out to the city members. Do you have any further information on that?
I actually spoke with the organizer of that summit today. We were almost uninvited. But we were assured that there would be a window of opportunity for us to put our issues at least on the table, if not for discussion at this retreat, for an additional retreat.
Okay.
What time is that?
That's good.
That, it's all day tomorrow, but that window of opportunity for us is specifically between, based on their agenda, between 9 and 11.
Okay. All right, great. That's fantastic. All right, so that's good. And I must say that the fact that we brought this issue of the tax pilots to light, it has made quite, let's put it this way, it has awakened the community, and now it has shed light on the issue because a lot of people were just unaware. And so us bringing that to light has been appreciated by the community, and now they expect us to really work something out with the city to make sure that those, that burden, that tax burden is not shifted from one group to them. So I have to commend all of us here for passing that resolution to ask the city to consider holding a moratorium on development until we could work something out. The next is library consultant. Now, why do I have that? I probably have it because there was something on the confidential that spoke about the library system that we have. But that said, I had some thoughts on the library system where we don't have, I mean, we have the individual librarians at all the schools, but we don't have a sort of like a head librarian for the district. And they could double as one, right? So it could be say for example, the Graham librarian could also be the head librarian for the district that puts together best practices, and so that there's a coordinated effort throughout the library of all the schools in terms of setup, in terms of indexing, in terms of maybe media labs that are in the libraries. I feel that, in my opinion, that most probably the person that would best fit this role could possibly be the person at the Mount Vernon Library, since that is our major school, our most major, and it's probably the largest library. So it may be a good fit, and I'll leave that up to the administration to take a better look into that. But as I go from school to school, I see a big difference between how a lot of the libraries in the individual schools are kept. And I think it should, and tell you the truth, it's unfair to some of the other schools as well. And I'm not sure what type of resources one school has over the other school. But it should all be equitable. It should all be pretty much the same in terms of its organization, in terms of the resources for the students. Now, of course, you know, grade appropriate, secondary level, primary level, that excluded. But I think that there's something in our library system that we should really look at right now and do a study of all the libraries, because it is a major asset of all the schools and it is a resource. And I don't think that we're giving it enough attention. Community use of property. A lot of people in the community say that maybe rightfully so, that they're not allowed on the school property, that they can't use the school property, they can't play frisbee or play, play catch with their kids on the school property. Trustee McGowan, do you have anything in the policies that you've read regarding community use of school property? Is there anything in there?
We obviously have a policy which we're in the middle of revising in terms of use of facilities, but that's more like the buildings.
Scheduled use?
Yeah, scheduled use by not, for non-school functions, which we revised slightly last year and are just finalizing some changes to fees and things which we'll bring to the board's attention, if not the next meeting, the one after. But in terms of just, can kids come play on the playgrounds, there is no policy on that. There's just, as far as I know, there's, the generic policy of we charge the administration with keeping the ground secure.
Do people walk on our tracks, though? Like, do people walk on the Mount Vernon track or run
They
on the
do.
track?
I've
Yeah.
seen people.
So if they're doing that,
I've never heard of anyone being denied the opportunity.
Okay, I've heard it, and
if you can walk on the track,
sure, I've heard it, and actually,
Better set up for it.
Mr. Policia could answer actually some of those comments as well by people, but also some of our properties are locked up.
Yeah.
There's no access. So I believe we ought to look into perhaps stating something about that in terms of where our position is. And I personally am of the position that the community should have access to our properties. There should be something in it for all stakeholders. All stakeholders who own property in the city of Mount Vernon pay taxes to the district. So whether or not they have children in the school district, I believe that there should be some type of added benefit for being in the district and paying taxes. So as we're building first-rate facilities, jogging facilities, tracks, we have fields. Obviously, if it's an organized use, as you discussed, a scheduled organized use, then they need to have permission, and perhaps there may be some fees involved. But if it's a casual, more,
Can I make a suggestion? My suggestion is we ask the district attorney to see if there's any precedent in how other districts deal with that, because while I'm all for the spirit, and I personally have used various school tracks at times in my life that I did not attend to jog and run at, and I intend my son to do the same, there are insurance and liability issues, and I want to know what exposure we have as a district. So I think that's a good question, and one we should research further and make sure that we integrate it somehow into the general facilities use policy that we already have.
Generally, in my previous districts, the way that has worked is, although there's generally signage that prohibits usage after school hours, and that's done to protect the district from any liability, because absent that signage, anything that happens, the board is therefore assuming liability, at
Right.
least in my previous experience. By posting the signage, you are advising folks, if you choose to use this, you have been advised that you do so on your own and on your own free will, and therefore you take responsibility for any injury or anything that may happen. And Cliff can speak better to that once we have an opportunity to digest it, but that's certainly something that I think could happen. But I've been around in the evenings, and especially over at Homes, they're playing basketball there.
right. That said,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
said,
Yeah.
I believe we should, this is the other reason I call for the policy, because we should have limits to that, right? Such as dawn to dusk, such as not during times of maybe school operation, because we need it for the students
yeah,
at the
of course.
time, right? We don't want to have to, tell a neighbor, hey, you have to leave now because the students are using it. So we could reserve those rights, but I'm specifically thinking about dawn to dusk on weekends, right? Or an extended, in the summer when the sunlight's still up and the dusk is later. So those type of activities. But yes, I definitely believe we should limit that, and after-hour activities should be forbidden.
No, this is very timely. Like I said, we're looking at revising the fees anyway. And since we already have facilities that people want to use, and they're only going to get better as the 2020 bond is fully implemented, this is going to become more and more of an issue. It's a good issue to have people want to use your facilities, so.
Okay.
There's also the more general practice of once we really have other districts wanting to use our sports facilities, to practice and play games and everything. We have to address that as well.
Good. And actually, I wanted to add to that, the fact that our facilities will and are becoming first-rate facilities that other districts and sports teams, private leagues may want to use, for example, the new tennis courts, when we have them at the high school, perhaps there could be a bubble put on them, and maybe we could do a separate lease in the wintertime where a private organization pays for the bubble and then now leases out and pays us rent and leases out the tennis courts in the wintertime where we couldn't have access to it anyway unless we're paying for our own
Right,
bubble.
right.
And we could make revenues on that, so it could be.
Yeah, it's the same thing with that, with the pool, I mean, with the new auditorium, the renovated auditorium. There's a lot of facilities that this district already has, and so some of them are being renovated, some of them are being constructed. But, yeah, that, part of the beauty of making this big investment in our community is many of these should and hopefully will turn into revenue generators, at least in some sense. And that is something, I know right now, Mr. Policio, we asked him about fees, and so he's looking at other districts, what they charge for certain things like that. We have to come up with a fee schedule. So, yeah, those are all being looked at.
That's
yeah.
great. Speaking of this, I was discussing with my wife in terms of, all the things that we're doing in the schools, and she made a particular comment which actually resonated, that the school is basically like a corporation, right? And we are, in that fact, the largest corporation in Mount Vernon. Actually, our budget is more than double the size of the city. So operating like a corporation, we should seek to, even though we're a nonprofit, because all of our facility dollars goes back into the schools.
Of course.
But we should seek every opportunity we can to make extra money that will go back to the academic vision and the vision that we have here set for the schools. So on that, I would also put another proposition forward, which is to consider in some of our facilities parking space. Some of the communities that we're around have a very difficult time with parking. And the neighbors are very upset, such as Trapphagen, I know, has a parking issue around there with all the apartment buildings. And so other neighbors, they block, the residential properties, the driveways. There's always some contention. So perhaps we could look into it, Cliff. That's another area that we'd have to discuss. Maybe after hours to maybe from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. type of parking thing that we could possibly rent space in our facilities to accommodate those who want to park. Because right now, we currently close the facilities at night and don't allow access at all for parking. But, like a parking garage, some people would gladly pay, and we could decide what the fees are for parking space, instead of looking around, waiting their cars, driving around all hours of the night, that they have a space in some of our facilities.
And a tow truck, a towing service for when.
Oh, when they don't move?
Because they won't move.
They won't move.
They won't move.
LA for especially.
Oh, yeah, no, just give it contracted out and have someone
Wait till
move
it
their cars.
snows.
Well, you know what, if they don't move, then they lose their privileges. There's things that we could do. And by the way, right now, Trapphagen is currently exposed in terms of not having an ability to close the access to the parking. And last night I passed by and there was at least 50 cars in the parking spaces, yeah. And by the morning, when the guys came back to work, there were only 3. So it wasn't bad, and that's unmonitored. So maybe on a monitored basis, we might have better luck. Something to consider. District book giveaway. So as we go through all the facilities, there's tons and tons of books, and not just textbooks, but literature that can possibly, of all different ages from the schools, that we don't know what to do with. They're not being used in the classrooms, they're not in the library system, but they're just congesting the hallways and the storage, and every time we open up another closet, here we go, more books. So instead of, throwing them into a trailer, seeing who wants to buy them or not, and then possibly dumping them or selling them for a penny somewhere, perhaps we can combine a book giveaway to our citizens here in Mount Vernon, and maybe we could couple that with the launching of your superintendent's reading challenge, and we could have maybe tables by grade levels with the different books, and have a person manning the tables maybe something, Darcy, this might be something that you may
Looking forward to
do
it.
so well. And so we could give away the books, and then whatever's left over, we could decide, to send them to auction or whatever. But there's tons of children's books and things that I see, and they're brand new. They're not used. A lot of, brand new books just sitting in hallways that we didn't use up and that are not being used currently. So that's something to consider. And the superintendent's reading challenge, I believe the kickoff is sometime in November.
Yep.
So that gives us a little time to prepare. I believe the principals in the buildings right now are collecting all the books or inventorying them along with the facilities department. So that is somewhere we could look to get a more accurate account of what's going on there. Okay, in the superintendent's confidential, if you don't mind, Mr. Superintendent, a lot of the abbreviations, and I work hard, and I'm good at that, the acronyms, the abbreviations, but especially when I'm reading a 14-page confidential, it would be really, it would make my life so much easier if the first time you use that abbreviation, you could spell it out, and then you could abbreviate it for the rest if you keep repeating it, or unless you decide to have a key. And especially sometimes when it comes to personnel, KRH, MPV, ACT. I'm like, oh, who's that? KRH?
Well, that's deliberate. That's in the legal part, and we don't want you to know all those names.
Okay, so how can I make a decision if I don't know who they are?
That only happens in the legal section.
But it's not pertaining to, let's say, people who, let's say, positions are up or things like that. It has to do with district personnel, right? Or a
Or a
particular.
parent or a child.
No, that I'm okay with.
Okay.
I'm talking about district personnel, and I'm specifically talking about maybe initiatives or programs.
Gotcha.
Right? That we're unaware of, but you guys use as your everyday, part of your everyday language that we just, yeah?
Okay. So noted.
Okay.
Acronyms, just of acronyms.
I noticed that I saw something on the confidential where we had speakers at Columbus, A.B. Davis, and Thornton that came up, but I haven't seen it through committee yet. Mr. Silver, can you elaborate on that? Speaker, intercom system.
About people coming to.
Orators.
Versus.
Yes. You can't comment on that? Okay, neither can I. All right. I believe that is it for the, and let me just make one last note regarding just the overall state of the district and where we're headed. I'm extremely, and I know I probably speak for all the members of the board here, we're extremely ecstatic about the progress that we've been making. The schools are looking great. Everyone's on board. We have great participation. The principals are excited. Staff generally, as I walk about, as I go to the different schools, staff is very excited. Administration, I know, being in this building all the time, is extremely excited as well. So I just want to say, let's keep it up. Let's keep the enthusiasm. And, some days are more difficult than others, obviously. That's the challenges of a turnaround. But overall, I just want to say thank you. All right.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so with no further ado, I believe we are, the consent agenda. All right, opportunity for board members to remove an item from the consent agenda.
It's already pulled.
It's already pulled.
Which one is already pulled?
I believe go ahead.
2 items were removed from the consent agenda prior to this evening's meeting. One is the emergency declaration for masonry needs at Mount Vernon High School, and the second is the provisional appointment of an inventory control clerk and authorization of an employment agreement. They are not on the consent agenda.
All right.
I just have I'm happy with it being on the consent agenda, but there's a typo in 12.4, provisional appointment of an athletic trainer. It says that,
0.4.
yeah,
Athletic trainer, okay.
if you look at the end, it says it authorizes,
12.3 now, isn't it?
is it 12.3 now? Has it been renumbered?
Okay.
It's 12.4 on mine, sorry.
Got it. Figured it.
It's 12 point,
It's hard to refresh. I have
it's 12.
an actual printout.
I caught it. We're good.
Yep.
It doesn't say videographer anymore?
No.
Good.
It was caught before the
Yeah.
printed copies went out.
Thank you. Just making sure we're hiring her for the actual job she thinks she's doing.
Surprise.
Multitask.
Do you need a motion to?
I'll move.
Okay, so just discussion on one item before we do 11.3, the approval of the Mount Vernon High School turf room by the City of Mount Vernon Recreation Department for a baseball clinic. Do we know when that is to begin? Mr. Silver?
It's, yeah,
It says October 15th?
Yeah, ours
Okay.
through March 25th.
All right, the reason I ask is because I visited that turf room recently, and we know the condition that it's in.
It's on the list.
It's on the list? Okay.
10 days from now.
Big list?
Okay.
Yeah.
If there is a big list, just wanted to note that. All right. Yeah. All right, so motion by trustee McOwen, second.
Second?
Trustee Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm in favor.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Okay, are we at 14? Resolutions pulled. All right, emergency declaration, masonry needs, Mount Vernon High School. Mr. Silver, can you please elaborate?
Sorry, we need a motion and a second to put it on the floor.
Oh, this is just discussion. We're not,
You need a motion and a second to start the discussion.
I will
motion
move.
to discuss?
I will move that we discuss the item regarding, which one is it, the high school
14.1.
sidewalks,
Sidewalks,
right?
yeah.
The
Correct.
emergency repairs to those sidewalks?
Emergency.
Whatever number it is now,
you
that
go.
one.
Is it not 14-1 anymore?
14-1.
Okay, I was going to refresh, okay. Go ahead, please.
Well, let me just ask, I mean, maybe other people did too, but I wanted to pull this to specifically understand kind of the history here, because we noted that this was an issue, previously, a few months ago, and what is bringing it to the table now, and what has been done in the interim. That's my question.
So in our walkthroughs and plans to do work around the district, we of course have a long list, many pages of things to do. And the condition of the walkways, Mr. Zamora, help me if you think I need it here.
Sure.
The condition of the walkways was always something that was determined to be in very bad shape. But it was somewhere down the list. We had, the board had recently and previously called the fire escapes an emergency. Changes in our plans having to do with Mandela and Thornton caused those two fire escapes and the $600,000 that was allotted for that to come off of the table. The Mandela fire escape for now is just going to be repaired. We're waiting for a second engineering report. The Thornton fire escape is going to turn into an enclosed stairwell and will become a part of the bond. Therefore, this $600,000 is now free, but can only be used for something that's declared an emergency. And so now these walkways and pathways have now moved up on the list to be eligible to be considered an emergency. It will be aided at our 75%, and our goal by doing this right now is to get this done before the winter so that we do not have situations where we cannot properly plow and shovel the walkways because they're in such bad condition. And so that's our deal. It will cost, we don't know how much of the 600. Tonight you're approving a portion of it, which is 270,000, could be 273, I think.
273.
And we may be coming back to you, we will be coming back to you with more so that we can try to do this, the expression being one and done, so we don't do it more than one time.
Right, and my understanding is this specific vendor is someone the district has used in the past, and these rates are negotiated?
This is part of a state contract.
Right, okay.
So to elaborate on the state contract, the way that would work, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we had a request for proposal done before, and this particular firm, and this happens, we have a lot of firms, came in as the low bid. So therefore, the district is allowed to use that contractor that did the low bid for that particular type of work, right, so masonry and concrete, for at least a year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, so we don't have to go out to bid every time we have another masonry job. This person, and I believe that was through the new bidding,
Through the BidNet.
BidNet, and also, what's that other We have?
It could have been one of the BOCES or
Not
something like
BOCES,
that.
the other one, that just came on as, like, because they do all the school districts. Michael asked us, and then we approved it to be part of that, sort of like consortium.
Yeah, that is a consortium, yes, of
It
of a
was,
number of school districts.
yeah.
That also applies to things like our boiler repairs, electrical contractor, plumbing contractor. These are all appointed each year by the board, generally in July, but I don't think that one was done in July. That was done a little bit later.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I can't remember the name, I'm thinking School Dude, but it's not School Dude. Anyway, that said, we will be coming back to the board regarding more. The high school is huge, and I have pictures here. Next time, maybe during the architect's report, we could present the conditions of the walkways there, but there are so many hazards, I was afraid my phone was going to be full.
We actually had the Department of Labor here about 2 months ago, and they had me on those walkways pointing out how dangerous those were.
Yeah, there's
just a
one
few
where the
weeks ago,
sewer
I
is
think.
actually, and there's a big hole that you could actually fall into the sewer on the sidewalk. It's covered up by a board right now.
Get it fixed.
But,
was gonna
yeah, so we will be moving to get it fixed. It's just a little overwhelming at first, and of course, there's always, do we leave it for the bond, but we can't any longer. We realize that. And also, there was a money issue, but now we have that, so we're all good to go. All right, so I would like to make a motion to approve 14.1. Do I have a second?
Second.
We already had the motion and second. Mr. McOwen and Mr.
That was a motion for discussion. Was that a motion to approve?
No, that was a motion to start the approval. Robert's rules say that before something can be discussed, it has to be moved and seconded to be put on the floor for discussion.
Now we just have to vote.
Okay.
Now you just have to take the vote.
now we vote.
So many rules.
However, for clarification, what if the motion was to deny?
Well, then it would still come up for a vote, and then the motion would fail.
Right, but what are we voting on? Are we voting on a motion to approve or deny? So I
No,
wanted
no.
to make sure that it was clear that the motion was to approve.
You're always voting to approve something.
We're always voting to approve unless it's
Right.
specific.
Yes.
Okay,
You
that's
always
good to
vote in
know.
the affirmative, and if you have 5 votes will always pass something unless it's written the opposite way.
Okay, or
Which I
unless
would-
someone comes with a different motion. All right, thank you very much for that clarification. So all those in favor?
You want to call for a vote?
Aye.
I am in favor.
Opposed?
All right.
Carries.
14.2, provisional appointment of an inventory control clerk and authorization of an employment agreement. And any discussion on that motion? No? I believe trustee Saunders will recuse herself from this particular vote. So I would like to make a motion to approve 14.2. I know, yeah, we didn't have a discussion, so this is a motion to approve. Thank you very much. 14.2, provisional appointment of an inventory control clerk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee White?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Nay. Abstain? Nay. We're good. Motion carries.
Trustee Saunders abstained.
Trustee Saunders
Oh, one
abstains.
abstention. Thank you. And we move on to committee reports. I guess we could start with trustee McCohen.
Sure. We had a policy meeting this past Friday morning. We will have another one this Friday morning at 8:30. We discussed the change order policy, and just to give some understanding to the board, so the policy is there will be basically 3 categories of change. The way the law works and the way the school policies now work is the board has to approve all contracts and all changes to contracts. In the course of construction, any kind of construction, but especially construction on the level at which we are and the pace at which we're doing things, change orders come up all the time, and many of them are very, very de minimis. It's just, we need another $500 worth of nails to finish this job or whatever, right? Or we need to move we found something when we blasted out the foundation and it needs to be moved 20 feet the other direction. It'll cost, $1,000 more. There are a lot of de minimis types of things like that we think it's appropriate for the district to just be able to proceed without coming to us with a list of 20 to 50 changes every single board meeting, especially as we really ramp up construction in the coming 18 months or so. So we're trying to develop a category of something de minimis that we'll propose to all of us to look at and make sure we're comfortable with, that the district can just not have that great administrative burden for really de minimis things. And also certain sorts of design choices that don't really impact or have great monetary value, things like that we want to make clear. The role is, as long as the board has approved it, that it can go forward, and certain of those design choices are left in the hands of the district or the district in consultation with the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And that only, real material change orders, material delays in completion, things like that are things that we will always, as a board, retain control over. So anyway, we circulated a draft of that to the Buildings and Grounds Committee, to administration. They're looking at that. And we're going to try and finalize the wording on that this coming Friday at our meeting so that we can be on for a first reading at the next meeting. We also began the discussion about the policy on zoning, specifically, when it's appropriate for children to request to, or parents to request on behalf of their children to change schools, mid-year or otherwise. And we do have a policy on that, and the procedure has, as I understand it, it's kind of not been changed in many years, and we're just kind of revisiting that and making sure that it's still something that makes sense, and notably that we're doing it the way we think we're doing it, that the practice is lining up with the policy, which is not always the case because the policy has not been revised in many years. And we're working with Felicia on that, and we'll have a proposal on that this coming meeting as well.
Thank you. And next, Trustee Miller, you have, I want to commend you, by the way, and Trustee McDowell, who's not present with us tonight, on a fantastic event with your committee, that your committee put on.
Thank you, and don't forget Trustee McGowan.
Were you a part of that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Wow, I mean, we were really lucky with the weather, but I really want to thank all the administration who showed up. I separately thanked Michelle Lopez and Melanie McMullen, who organized, and Bob Semina, who organized volunteers for me. And we learned a lot of lessons, so I know what to look out for in subsequent years. But the good news is everyone had a great time, and it seems like it was really a home run. So it was very gratifying, and I'm glad it's over. And people said, well, let's do it again in the spring. I said, no, annual event. But Dr. BC, Michelle McKitty Bromley, Rick McCormick, I was screaming at all day, get someone on the spoon egg race. Everybody was extremely helpful, and we pulled it off, and I'm really happy. So our next committee meeting's probably going to be going back to focusing on PR and the things that we discussed with focus at the administrative retreat, and I'm trying to schedule a meeting for the week of the 17th of October, so I'll let you know.
And on the event, too, just thank you, community. There was a great turnout. A ton of people showed up and was there kind of the whole time. It was really, really a great turnout. All the events were busy the whole time, and I know people who came to demonstrate different activities were happy with the participation of the kids. Just thank you, everyone, for coming and really making it a great event.
Yeah, and again, the weather could not be better.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It was an unbelievable day. Thank you for that. And Trustee White, on your curriculum and instruction.
We had a meeting on September 29th, started at 8 a.m. First, we met with Dr. Walden, and I just want to give her a round of applause for her, she did a back-to-school,
Oh, the curriculum?
a curriculum meeting. It was wonderful. Parents, how to teach your children, how to talk to your children, math. She had so many workshops planned for that evening, and it was really a great workshop. It really, performing arts performed, the performing arts students performed and everything. But it was really a great workshop, and if you missed it, I wish more parents were here. We hope to do something maybe around testing time, a pep rally or something, and trying to get parents to know how to treat their children getting ready for testing and everything. So that was a wonderful meeting in the morning. Then we also had Dr. Gail White Wallace. She came to review some of the tools that we're using in our schools, like iReady, and there's a new program with iReady. It's called iReady Standard Mastery. It's pertains right to the standards, and teachers are teaching to those standards where the kids have fallen below. If they didn't meet that standard, they're teaching to it. We also have Dibbles Waterfront. That's on the computer for the kids, and it's tests their abilities of learning to read, where they are in the reading. We do quick reads, great books. She has so many tools that we're using to really, that we're investing in our children now. So, and even with pre-K, they have gone digital. Everything will be on tablets for them, their own little setup. At the high school, should be very nice to see once everything is in place. So Mount Vernon, we are invested in our children. We want to see better. It looks like this year we should see a lot of growth in all our levels, different levels of school.
That's fantastic, and
So we're really working hard. The staff is really working hard.
you know what? I missed Thursday night. That was a curriculum night at the high school
Yes.
because I had another engagement, and now you're making me feel very sorry that I
You
did.
should feel guilty that you missed it, but it was
Very sorry
excellent.
that I missed
was
it, and,
excellent.
thank you.
And Dr. Walden did it, she and Jeff, right? So it was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And Trustee Farron?
I'd like to thank the board for appointing today James Thomas to our audit committee. James is a tax partner at Ernst & Young. He has over 15 years' experience in state and local taxes. So a really great addition.
And he lives here in Mount Vernon?
And he lives here in
Yes.
Mount Vernon.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Never know.
Indeed, that too. He's joining us just in time for our annual review of our audited financials, which should be ready later this week, I think, or next week by our external auditors. So we'll have to turn a sharp eye on that.
Sounds like fun.
It is. It really is. We'll be meeting, the audit committee will be meeting the week of the 17th, so hopefully all members can attend that. Our external auditor, Scott, will be coming in to actually do the review of, the initial review of the annual report. And in November, we will present that report to, Scott will be in to present that report to the entire community and the board, and we will also add our 2 cents to that.
Awesome.
I think the meeting will be the week of the 17th. We will actually present to the board, I think, the first meeting in November. That's when we're scheduled, I think, the 5th. So within the next month, we'll hear all the details on it. It'll be exciting.
It's a Tuesday?
And the next CNI meeting is October 27th, 8
It's a
o'clock.
Saturday.
7th is election.
Yeah. I was like, the
Yeah.
5th, that's my wife's birthday. I was like, I can't come to the meeting. So, no, that's a Saturday,
Hey.
so.
When is
The
our
night
first
is
meeting?
my wife's birthday.
In
Oh,
November?
no.
They get home.
Okay.
Rick?
Should have mentioned
When
that
is
to me.
our
Pass me.
It's the first Tuesday, is that the 7th?
The first Tuesday's the first.
Is the 1st.
Okay. I think
Okay.
that's the day.
All right, so we're going to move quickly. Trustee Jaros, please.
Okay, quickly.
Wellness?
Just an update on the Davis Kitchen. That was in less than satisfactory condition when the project was started. Now it's almost completed. They're just going to be installing a panini press. And also a combi oven,
fancy.
which is an oven that is convection also, plus it has a steam capability. So the beauty of these things is that the staff is going to be trained on cleaning and the proper operation, and they're going to make sure that they know all about these, this sensitive equipment that they're getting. Also, Davis will be getting a panini machine, and, what was it, Thornton. We have a vending contract with Superior Vending, and they're dispensing healthy snacks, and we're very happy with the contract that we've gotten. Let me see. We have a lot of equipment that needs to be disposed of, and we have to talk about how we're going to do this, because right now it's taking up a lot of space, and it's not usable. I want to thank two of the people especially, the custodians, the head custodian, and another custodian, Franklin Scarlett and Jeffrey Forbes at Davis, because they were instrumental in getting the Davis kitchen in the shape that it is quickly. Sodexo's hired a new chef, and he's from Mount Vernon. His name's David Gladman, and he has extensive culinary experience. We happened to sample some of his work tonight, and it was excellent.
It was good.
Nice.
Best vegetables we've ever had.
Okay,
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
It's true.
okay, that's
Just
about,
saying,
that's about it.
as a
Thanks.
vegetable.
Well, that's pretty exciting. Do you want to touch upon the fact that we're going to be doing some kitchen renovation also at the Mount Vernon High School kitchen, which is, of course, our main district kitchen?
Yes, yes, we are. I mean, there's equipment that was from 1960